If you've watched my channel for any extended length of time, you should know that I have a fascination with the desert. We've already done videos on the Salton Sea and Moab, and we've done a few videos on other places like Alabama Hills. Now it's time that we trek across the most famous desert in America, the Mojave. Any search on YouTube will show you there's plenty of videos on the Mojave Road already. I wanted to see it for myself. Since one of the golden rules of off-roading is to never go alone, we gathered some friends together and we decided to trek across this historic road. The Mojave Road has been trekked on by various members throughout history, not the least of which starting with the natives in pre-contact times, and then Spanish missionaries, then U.S. troops and traders, until eventually being surpassed by more official routes like Route 66 and later the interstates. Now the Mojave Road is contained within the Mojave National Preserve and is a piece of living history. So join me as a group of my friends and I made the journey, and we kind of show you some of the stuff you'll see along the way, because man, it is quite the journey, and I think you'll enjoy what we found. So strap in and come with us as we journey across the vast Mojave Desert using the old Mojave Road. Less tire pressure means better traction and a more comfortable ride. Something that was absolutely crucial going through a 96-mile journey through the desert. Some of us aired down more than others.
Well, that one's 5. I gotta bring that up.
I was gonna say, who's gonna be the first to pop a bead, but
Wait.
Franco, if you don't do your tires that low, you're not living.
Hey, Ellie will die if she goes that long. Ellie would die. She's nice, but she'll die.
Now the person here, Brett, he didn't actually air down his tires that far on purpose. That was just a mistake for the one tire. Before making the trip, there was some discussion on what form of communication we would use from vehicle to vehicle. We eventually settled on just CB. Here's Monty's reasoning for why he didn't want to do ham. Monty, why won't you get a ham license?
I just don't want to take the class, dog.
That's it?
Yeah, I don't want to pay for it.
Oh.
Not everybody works for a conduit, okay?
So CB just tended to be more convenient for everyone instead of going to something like VHF or GMRS. What's the Mojave Road home to?
Hello, my name is Mojave Monte. This is the Mojave Road, home of the last of the Mojaveans.
Today, my friends and I, we are out here beginning our journey on the Mojave Road. The Mojave Road, as some call it. Monty just disconnected my audio mid-bit. This is why I do all the narration in post now, if you haven't noticed. Mojave Road is, in fact, the overlanding mecca for California. Other places have their overlanding spots out west, but this tends to be the place. So we're gonna hit the road. Looks like everyone is aired down, and we're just gonna have a good time. The trail near the Nevada side of the Mojave Road so far was more rutted and sand than washboard, which was very pleasant on our suspension and on us in general. Our first leg of the journey took us to the base of the mountains in front of us, where we stopped to eat lunch before the ascent. One of the benefits about traveling the Mojave Road is there is plenty of free camping spots and areas to stop and pull off. Wherever a fire ring is, it's fair game to camp. And in this case, we just used one for lunch. By this point in our journey, our ascent up the mountains began. Now, most of the Mojave Desert is actually at a pretty high but pretty flat elevation. Coming in near the Nevada entrance, this was the most elevation gain you'll experience the entire trip. One of the best things about the Mojave Road is how flat it is. In reality, the trail can be very punishing for vehicles, but at the same time very forgiving in that you're not throwing up your vehicle against rocks, which is the fastest way to damage the vulnerable underbelly of your vehicle. It's mainly just rutted out dirt roads, so if your suspension can handle the washboard roads that we'll encounter later, this is honestly the most challenging, quote-unquote, part of the trail, aside from a few obstacles and ends that are easily bypassable.
Hello, my name is Monte Mojave.
While the golden sunset of the desert made for a gorgeous backdrop, it was a stark reminder that we did need to get to camp before it was dark, so we tried to make good time with that in mind. We did it, Reddit.
We did it. Imagine.
Once we made it to camp, we discovered that we had our first casualty of the trip, namely one of Monty's plastic fenders.
Hey, who broke first? Did your tire hit that?
Yeah, pop that sucker right off.
The whole trip, keep in mind there had been a bet going on whose vehicle was going to break down or suffer damage first, and everyone was pinning it on Franco's 1999 Jeep TJ. It does seem, though, and much to Monty's chagrin, Monty was the first casualty. There it is.
I know. Hey, he broke first. Hey, Monty, you broke.
Franco really wants to tell you that you broke something first.
No, Frank is the type of guy who keeps a gas can in his car.
After driving about 30 miles through the Mojave Road up some scraggly rocks, and Monty lost a fender, we're just now setting up camp, and it's absolutely gorgeous out here. The amount of Joshua trees, hills, desert camping never seems to get the credit it deserves for these beautiful sunsets. There's also what looks like I guess it's a military silo. I'll let narration Stephen take over on explaining that place a little bit more. While I erroneously called it out as a missile silo, the structure here is anything but. It's actually what's known as a Vortec. Specifically, the building here is Goff's Vortec GFS 114.4. In the short of it, they're just used to relay information to aircraft. Google actually lists this as an airport. Strangely enough, I don't know why, but that's all it is. It's just a beacon for pilots. Unexpectedly, well, at least for me, we ended up setting up camp next to one of the penny trees. I think I just watched a video the other day where Overland Bound came out here and was talking about it. You can hear Franco flying the drone around. I actually just picked up a DJI Mavic Mini 2. They dropped the Mavic line. This is not an ad. It's my first drone. It's a lot of fun. We'll see what kind of cool shots we can get with it. We're gonna have some carne asada. We've all kind of pitched in for it, and we're gonna have a good night, some good food, and some good stories. There's something about food when it's cooked on the trail that makes it taste 10,000% better than it would at home, and that remained true on this wonderful evening. As we traded stories around the fire, we were treated to a wonderful carne asada dinner by Rob. It was a great end to our first day on the trail. As the morning sun spilled across the desert floor, it was time to hit the road again. We didn't spend a whole lot of time on breakfast as we had a lot of ground to cover. Swag Lord, you taking point? This part of the journey involves the Joshua Tree Forest. Most of my previous experiences with Joshua trees were typically from a distance. It was interesting to be able to camp among them and kind of drive in these narrow paths between them. After driving on the road for about 15 minutes or so, we came to our first destination, which was an abandoned homestead. Now, I honestly looked up and down for information on this settlement. Most abandoned structures on the Mojave Road are marked from Fort Paiute to the Burt Smith House, but I couldn't figure out anything about this. It was fenced off, but it wasn't marked as private property. There was clearly a camping ring next to it, so people did in fact camp here, but that's all we know about it, so a mystery for another time. So a few minutes ago, Monty went to go check out an obstacle, and it's a little too sketch, so we all piled on the TJ. I really hope a ranger doesn't show up, because it's gonna be real awkward. I'm good.
Hey, don't go too close to this. Go for it. This is a big one. Oh, you all right?
Now, for obvious reasons, we didn't stay on the Jeep like this the whole way, but we did hop back in our vehicles, which took us to our next destination, the Rock Spring Cabin, also known as the Bert Smith Cabin. Bert Smith was a soldier who participated in World War I and suffered from one of the chemical weapons of the time, his lungs being scarred. He moved out here in an attempt to get away from the bad air quality of the cities and wasn't given very long to live. He managed to beat his grim prognosis and live for another 25 years out here in the middle of the desert, his home becoming an iconic point along the trail in the process.
That's a broken knob.
Oh, look, you can actually see inside.
Massive padlock.
Lockpicking Warrior. You guys ever watch a Lockpicking Warrior on YouTube?
This is our chance. We found out later there's no way to get inside. There might have been in the past, but it's since been locked. Although in the distance, I noticed a broken down building, and therefore I went to go check it out.
Blow the stick.
Can we film it? There could be more.
Yeah, I got it. Jeremy Doyle, Snake Whisperer.
Oh, what? Did you hear that? Stay back, kids.
We'll never know. Our totally thorough and professional examination of the structure led me to believe it was probably just a storage shed. Some disagreed on whether or not it was a mine entrance. I think this one was just a building where Bert might have kept some tools. We also found a bunch of cans. People living out in remote places like this didn't really have a good way to get rid of trash. They would just throw these giant piles out here in the desert. With half our day behind us and only minimal stops to look at the wildlife and for food, we arrived mostly without issue to the Mojave Mailbox.
I put a sticker on. I think I might leave a sticker for somebody. The whole thing. There's a turtleback trailer decal.
Oh yeah, they were here.
You gotta take something.
Today's the 13th?
Adult beverages, a mask.
How fitting for this year.
You know, coming to this mailbox reminded me of one thing. I don't think I quite yet understand the correlation between derelict mailboxes and vast, open, mysterious deserts. Maybe one of these days I'll figure it out. There's also, strangely enough, a shrine to frogs, in addition to a shrine to gnomes. There used to be a third shrine. It contains some Hot Wheels and Tonka toys. It looks like it's since been removed. From what I understand about these shrines, they've been longtime favorites of people who travel the Mojave Road. The National Park Service has since felt that these shrines don't mesh well with the natural habitat, so they are soon to be removed. I think we were very fortunate to see both of these shrines before they're moved to the Kelso Museum. It's awesome to be able to document these roadside oddities in their original positions, and that's something that I don't take for granted. Our final stop for the day would include a literal descent into geologic history.
You come down with me.
You guys like my backpack?
Yeah.
Very stylish.
Thank you.
Oh wow.
Gucci.
These caves, or lava tubes as they are also known, were formed roughly 10,000 years ago when this part of the Mojave was covered in 32 cinder cone volcanoes. The lava on the surface had cooled and hardened, allowing magma underneath to continuously flow, creating the caves we were able to walk in here. It's only about 500 feet, so we didn't get very far, but at certain times of day, we didn't get to see it, but light shines through like God rays out of a video game. It's absolutely gorgeous, some of the pictures you can look up online. I'm still glad we had a chance to climb on in. With the lava tubes out of the way, the sun was setting. We wanted to make good time to the next campsite so we could turn in, eat some food and sleep, and get ready for our last day on the trail. As the final morning of our trip came, the group collectively appreciated our camping spot because the built-up walls of lava actually created a great wind barrier and insulator for our fire from the night before. This third morning was a little bit slower. We didn't have as much on the agenda today as we did yesterday. We planned on cutting our journey just a little bit shorter. Some of us had obligations to attend to, so instead of taking the whole 137 miles of the Mojave Road, we were just doing 96. This trip wasn't done with the surprises just yet, though.
How you doing, man?
As I got to try something that I'd never eaten before.
So this is quail you took out yourself?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you guys try it.
Yeah, I'll try some.
I'm into the bacon dish.
That's it. Well, it's my first piece of quail. Pretty good.
I think what I do is I've never had a quail bacon burrito.
It has a, how do I put it? It's also got a slightly different texture.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not, it doesn't have the stringiness that chicken might have sometimes.
Yeah. The guy that we hunt with, he says quail is the filet mignon of the sky.
Okay. Quail is the filet mignon of the sky. I like that. As with any good experience I have, I had to share it with my wife.
Why don't you try it?
Why are you going to record me?
Because I want to see your reaction. No, I really liked it. It's quail and bacon. There's bacon in there too. Rob cooked it on the scuttle.
Did he catch it
Yeah, he did.
this morning?
Not this morning, but this is his own catch.
I got a bunch of tortillas.
Yeah, it's really good. With breakfast out of the way, the ritual of packing began, with minimal horsing around. We found the yucca man. There he is, coming down the mountain. For our last leg of the journey, we had one goal in mind: make it to Traveler's Monument, and then head on out back to civilization. At this point in the journey, we were 2 vehicles down. David, who was driving the Toyota Tundra, had to leave early due to work obligations, and Brett, who drove the Lexus, also had to exit earlier than expected as a rock near the parking area around the lava tubes jutted up and crunched a control arm. He felt it'd be best just to leave early in case any more damage could have been incurred by this.
Get a jar and take it home.
No, it's the same one yesterday. Yeah, no, it's the same one.
Yeah, let's go on the rock. Take the rock.
Put it in the jar. I'll take it home for you, Nolan, and we'll put it in your dad's office.
Let's go to Traveler's Monument.
Quick, we gotta get by before it comes back to the road.
Look at this. Kelsey spotted petroglyphs.
What?
Petroglyphs.
Think those are real?
What? Oh, yeah. Those are real.
Expert.
Dated.
Look right here. 2002.
September 2002.
Kelly date 2002.
Yeah. Wow, these were ancient times. The final leg of our journey towards Soda Lake saw us travel over some relatively flat terrain, but more washboard roads. Either way, though, the wide open spaces were absolutely gorgeous. The Soda Dry lake bed is actually what remains of a 10,000-year-old Ice Age lake, and now whatever water does end up on the lake bed evaporates pretty quickly and leaves behind just sodium bicarbonates, and it's where you get this nice crunchy white salt. At this point, we then finally made it to the Traveler's monument. Now, the shtick with the Traveler's Monument is you take a rock and you put it in the pile from somewhere else that you brought. I think for us it was a nice place to end the journey, and of course we had to take some pictures. What are you doing?
That's what happens if I don't see candy for my morning on date. My body starts freaking out.
9, 8,
7,
smile big,
6,
kid.
Smile, look right there at the
4, 3, 2, 1.
In retrospect, the Mojave Road is a few things. Not only is it an off-roading trail through the middle of the desert, it's also a history lesson, a geology course. It's also a test of how reliable your vehicle is. But above all else, it's certainly an experience. And I'm extremely glad I got to travel most of the trail with a good group of friends. And much like every place I go, I recommend you do it at least once. Make sure you have a reliable vehicle, some four-wheel drive, and you'll be just fine. This is Go with Grimes, and thank you all for joining me and my friends along the journey across the Mojave Road.